Okay, all right. Let's settle in for a deep dive into the world of EU funding. Today, we'll crack the codes of the Horizon program with the idea that we help you unlock the resources you need to support your institutions, your MFIs, work with micro and social enterprises, and in particular to boost non-financial services that you provide or you are planning to provide. So let's then get started. My name is Grzegorz Galusek and I work for the MFC. MFC stands for Microfinance Center. It is a network that works out of Poland. It works in Europe and the former Soviet Union countries. And today, in terms of the expertise on the EU funding, we have invited Martina Paterniti, who has a background in international affairs and project management. And Martina, after her studies in Italy and Belgium, managed programs at Euractiv. Euractiv is in case you haven't heard about it, is a pan-European media network specializing in EU affairs. But currently, Martina is project coordinator at the ENSIE, which stands for European Network for Social Integration Enterprises. ENSIE represents national and regional EU networks or organizations that provide work opportunities for disadvantaged people and promoting their social and professional integration. So before I pass the mic to Martina, I would like to mention a few housekeeping rules. So maybe let's go back to the previous slide. And after that, I will also say a few words about the sponsor, about SIFTA, which is the sponsor of this webinar. So we'll take about 90 minutes plus. We'll also have time for questions and answers. So together, almost 2 hours. This webinar is recorded. You have received notifications, so please confirm that you are fine with recording it. Recording is one of the requirements of the sponsor of this program, and we will also use it for reporting purposes. Of course, we encourage all of you to ask questions. The more questions you ask, the happier we are as organizers and providers of the expertise on the EU funding opportunities. Just as a matter, if you are interested also in receiving the presentation, we will be happy to share it after the webinar. So now a few words about the sponsor, and that is SIFTA. And apologies if you've heard these things before. SIFTA is a Social Inclusion, Finance and Technical Assistance Program, and it is housed under InvestEU Advisory Hub. I'm sure you have already heard a lot about InvestEU. It is a large-scale EU initiative that focuses on mobilizing private and public investments across Europe. It provides financial guarantees and other support mechanisms for projects in infrastructure innovation and in social investment. You can think of InvestEU as a broad umbrella program promoting investments across various sectors within the European Union countries. And within InvestEU, there is this pillar on social investment and skills, which specifically addresses challenges and opportunities related to social inclusion and upskilling of the workforce. This is where SIFTA comes in. European Investment Bank is in charge of this project. it provides targeted capacity building, advisory, project advisory, and market development support to MFIs, microfinance institutions, and also social finance providers in the EU. As you can see, it has two pillars. One pillar is about advisory, about technical assistance and training and other opportunities to meet and share knowledge. And the other pillar, equally important one, is about rating and assessment and evaluation of institutions, predominantly to comply with the European Code of Conduct, which is kind of a standardization and certification programs for institutions that provide microcredit and financing to social enterprises. So let's move to the next slide. This program works predominantly, or exclusively, I should say, in the EU. I said predominantly because the previous editions actually also covered countries outside of EU. Now it focuses on EU only. It is important if among you that there are institutions that are EU-based institutions and are thinking of becoming part of it, please bear in mind that the time frame for this program is actually end of December 2024. So if you're thinking of applying, please bear in mind this deadline. I also already mentioned the target providers. In terms of the novelty here with this edition is that we also provide a lot of technical assistance to social enterprise finance providers, and they can be investment funds, impact investors, incubators, social enterprise, entrepreneurship, accelerators, etc., etc. So in general, initiatives, programs, organizations, funds that provide financing for social enterprises. So microfinance providers on one hand, and social finance providers on the other hand. This is the scope of work for SIFTA program. It is delivered by 3 institutions, by the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. This institution is the lead, the consortium leader. And then Microfinance Center, that I am and my colleague Joanna are part of, is one of the consortium partners. The other one is European Microfinance Network, which is a Brussels-based EU microfinance network. The evaluation and assessment services are provided by Microfinance Rating, which is an Italy-based evaluation and certification institution. So let's move to the next slide. You can very easily apply for SIFTA if you are interested. And as I said, once you apply, you will be entitled to it's completely free of charge technical assistance, but also completely free of charge program of exchange visits, study visits, peer-to-peer visits. So quite a lot. You should write a message, an email to EIB, and they will respond. They will send an application form, which is not a very complex one. And once you get admitted to it, you sign a contract with EIB, and then you are entitled to all of these services that I have already mentioned. So with this, I would like to pass the mic to Martina. I've already introduced her. Martina, is there anything that I missed while introducing you? Is there anything that you would like to maybe add, complement your professional journey?
Well, no, I think it's enough. Thank you so much. Indeed, currently thank you also for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah. If I could add, it's not the first opportunity to work with you. We've already organized events, webinars with you, and your expertise on EU funding was really, really well appreciated by the participants of those other events. That's why we thought it would be important actually to continue this collaboration and provide necessary updates and information about EU
Thank you so much. So good morning, everybody. First of all, indeed, as Gregor stated, I'm currently a project coordinator at ENSI, which is the European Network of Social Integration Enterprises. So I have currently a role of supervision of ongoing European projects. And I'm also responsible for the preparation of project proposals to reply indeed to calls for proposals that are mainly published by the European Union institutions. So I can start sharing my screen if this is fine with you.
Absolutely, please go ahead. The virtual space is all yours.
Thank you. So, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So, as Gregor said, we do envisage an interactive session. So I envisaged actually some moments for Q&A between different topics. So here you can see also all the different subjects we are going through. I just okay, hold on. Yes. Between some of these topics, there will be indeed some sessions for Q&A, so please don't hesitate also to write in the chat. My colleague also Virginia, but colleagues indeed from MFC also will help me to gather your questions, so we can also address those ones not only at the end of the session, but also during the presentation. So as you can see, indeed, I will focus first of all on objectives, overview of the Horizon Europe program. Then I will go in depth in some topics that are about indeed Horizon Europe. So Pillar 2, which I think is the most interesting for a microfinance center indeed, and not only, also for social economy enterprises, given that I also work in this domain. The key impact there is expected also according to the program. Then we will go in depth on types of projects and relevant goals that could be appropriate also for the microfinance domain. And then I will dive into some essential notions and concepts, how to draft a proposal, given that indeed we also need to elaborate a project proposal to answer to the calls that are published by the European Union institutions. So here I am indeed. Well, before diving into Horizon Europe, I wanted to provide you with an overview of other funding programs. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. So as you may already know, the European Union is funding numerous funding programs. And they all have a different scope according to the topics, according to the priorities, and so on. So here I also wanted to mention some. You may already know Erasmus+, because I think it's one of the most relevant, one of the most known European funding programs worldwide, given also its success in terms of achievements and so on. So it's a program actually that is focused on training and skills. Some of you may think actually that it's a program only addressing students or young workers, let's say. Actually, it is not. Also during, thanks to the last MFF, so the last European Union budget program, that was opened in 2021, and it will last indeed until 2027. The Erasmus Plus program has been broadened a lot. And indeed, it also provides opportunities for capacity building, exchange of good practices, adult learning, informal and non-formal education, which can also be the on-the-job training. So it is a very, very broad program, and there will be a lot of opportunities. Some of you could remember also, well, I collaborated also with MFC in previous years, and some of the webinars indeed were also focusing on Erasmus+. The next work program, where you will be able also to find the relevant course, will be only published at the end of the current year. So between November and December 2024. And there will be, of course, some calls for proposals with deadlines applying for 2025. Then we have also Interreg, which is also a very relevant funding program, whose focus is mainly at the regional and local level. So there are, well, this is also a very broad program. There are actually some sub-programs that we tried to outline here in this slide. As you can see, the cross-border cooperation, which, as you can imagine, indeed requires collaboration in terms of transnational countries and organizations. Then we have transnational cooperation, which is another subkind, indeed, of another subtype of Interreg projects. Then we have outermost region.
Excuse me, Martina, somehow we lost your voice. I'm not sure what happened. Just a moment, your mic got...
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So,
okay, great, thank you.
Not sure why your mic got switched off.
Okay. So I was saying, indeed, but today we are here to focus on Horizon Europe, indeed, which is the biggest research and innovation program worldwide. So, what are we talking about? So, as I already mentioned, the European Union has established its budget starting from 2020, and it is a budget lasting 7 years. This is called indeed MFF. And the idea is to envisage some envelopes according to the funding program. The total envelope, the total budget for Horizon Europe for the programming period then between 2021 and 2027 amounts to 95 billion and a half, which is huge, as you can see. This is also why it is the biggest funding research and innovation program worldwide. And it also includes, of course, a part dedicated to Next Generation Europe. Also, this is another funding program which is also having some synergies indeed with Horizon. And it has a lot of priorities, as you can see here. The objectives of Horizon Europe are quite broad. At the same time, given that the total budget is quite big, of course, the cause need also to focus on some topics in particular. So it promotes the industrial competitiveness of the market. It facilitates collaboration and strengthens the impact of research and innovation. It creates jobs, boosts economic development, and fully engages the EU talent pool, which is also another measure about, in particular, migrants, migration, and refugees coming from third countries to Europe. It also boosts the European Union competitiveness and growth, of course, because when it comes to research and innovation, we are also talking about the growth of the European labor market. It helps achieving the European, well, the United Nations SDGs. This is also a buzzword that we are seeing almost everywhere, of course, and Horizon Europe is also supposed to facilitate the achievement of the SDGs indeed. It supports the creation and diffusion of excellent knowledge and technology, and it tackles climate change. So you already know, of course, we are facing the so-called twin transition, so the digital transition and also the green transition. And when it comes, of course, to the environmental transition, to the climate change and so on, of course, Horizon Europe can't be left aside. So here I wanted also to provide you with an overview of the structure of Horizon Europe. It is articulated in 3 different pillars. We have pillar 1, which is focusing on excellent science. So as you can imagine, this is mainly affecting research centers, universities, everybody who is really in the scientific domain, I would say. Then there's the second pillar, which is focusing on global challenges and European industrial competitiveness. It is a pillar that is divided in clusters, and the total budget for only this pillar amounts to 53 billion euro. And then we have the third pillar, which is about innovative Europe. And indeed, there are also some sub-programs within the third pillar. So we have also a focus on the European Research Center, which is a specific agency based in Brussels. There is financing also some research program for researchers, researchers, academia, and so on. European innovation ecosystems. So this is also a concept that you may have already heard in other funding programs, because there are also different synergies that are created between Horizon Europe and this specific concept of European innovation ecosystems and other indeed funding programs. And we also have the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. So the idea also of this third pillar is to connect with the regional and national innovation actors. This is also something that is quite interesting, especially given that we always think, we always need to create synergies and cooperation with other actors actually that are involved in the research domain, which is quite broad. We don't only need actually academia, we also need the civil society organizations, we also need business stakeholders and so on. Still today, we are going to focus on pillar 2, because it is the most interesting for microfinance centers indeed. And here I am. As I already mentioned in the previous slide, the second pillar is actually divided into so-called clusters. So we have different clusters. So you may think of clusters by associating them to topics, very broad topics that would have a focus when it comes, of course, also to the missions and the objectives of the project proposal you will be building. So the first cluster is health. Then we also have culture, creativity, and inclusive society, whose total budget amount to more than 2 billion euros. Then we also have the civil security for society, digital industry and space, climate, energy, and mobility, and then we also have the food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. Here, actually, you can see in the slides the budget there is affiliated to those clusters that we think are also the most interesting, the most relevant actually also for the kind of business you may run. So also to give you an idea of the funding available for these specific clusters indeed. Something also that I wanted to remind is that the overall budget for this second pillar amounts to 53 billion euros. So quite important to keep this in mind, because it means, of course, that there's a lot of budget available. Of course, it's always throughout the 7 years, the programming years, so from 2021 to 2027. Here I wanted also to talk about the key impact pathways. When we are writing a project proposal, we can't only think, of course, of the activities, of the objectives, and of the call for proposals itself. We also need to think of the impact we want to generate, which also needs to be compliant with the expected impact from the European Union. Of course, they are the ones drafting the work program. They are the ones drafting the calls for proposals. So we need to align also with their expectations. So here you can see there are also different kind of impacts. The European Commission indeed is expecting. They cluster them into 3 different ones. So there's the scientific impact, which is very important. So as I already mentioned, Horizon Europe is the research and innovation program. So of course, the first kind of impact to mention is the one related to academia, to research, to science. So this is why we are talking about scientific impact. So we can mention indeed the creation of high quality new knowledge, strengthening human capital in research and innovation, but also fostering diffusion of knowledge and open science. So you may think actually that this is mainly addressing academia, but actually it's not, because when you think of human capital in research and innovation, of course, they also need to find some investments. So it's also about generating business, investments actually in the domain of research and innovation. We also have then the societal impact. So indeed, addressing policy priorities and global challenges through research and innovation, but also the delivery of benefits and impact via research and innovation missions. So here, once again, you can see the link between the academia domain and the work on the ground, the work on the business side, the work also on the civil society organizations, the work that the tiny organizations that are also financing indeed local businesses are providing. Then we also have the strengthening the uptake of research and innovation in society. And this is how we can really exploit the results of the project, of the research that was carried out during our project. So this is very important actually, because we can't think of Horizon Europe projects just by focusing on results of the academia. They will stay actually with, we can't actually allow those to remain in the domain of the academia. We need to create some links with the labor market. So this is indeed what they are looking for. And then there's also, of course, the economic impact, which is about exploitation, but mainly on the business side. So this is why they mention the generation of innovation-based growth, the creation of more and better jobs, leveraging investment in research and innovation. So now we go to the types of projects that can be financed within indeed Horizon Europe. There are a lot of acronyms, as you can see. This is a classic, but still I wanted indeed to highlight this, because when we are looking for a cost for proposals, we are dealing with acronyms, so we need to know their meaning as well. So when it comes to RIA, this is Research and Innovation Action. So these are normally types of projects that are financed at 100%. So this is very interesting, because you don't need to come up with any co-financing. Also, kind of extra tip, overheads are normally up to 25%. So this is also quite interesting when it comes to the budget we need to deal with this kind of projects. Then we have the IA types of projects, which are the innovation actions. They are normally financed at 70%. So in this case, the organization need to come up with 30% of co-financing. Of course, this is something that you need to take into account, of course, when applying for a project, because you need to have own resources, own income. Then we have a CSA. So these are coordinating and support actions, and they are also financed at 100%. Very interesting, I would say. And then we also have the co-fund acronym, which is another type of projects financed always under Horizon Europe. And in this case, the co-financing rate by the European Union may vary between 30 and 70%. It really depends on the subdomain of the project. All right, so
Martina, could you maybe give an example of a co-fund type of a project?
Excuse me?
Would you mind giving maybe an example of a co-fund project?
Yes.
Like, okay.
Well, so let's say, normally a co-funding project is a project actually envisaging a total budget, a total envelope. So you can consider 100%, which is the total budget of our project. So the European Union is coming up with a co-financing, let's say, up to 70%. Then you need to come up, to compensate with 30%. An example that is coming to my mind was is a project financing the renewing of some football stadiums across Europe. It required actually a lot of research when it comes, the academia and so on, but there's also the business side. Because then you also need to invest to exploit actually these results into the stadiums. So given that there's also a generation of business opportunity, this is also why they do expect actually that you are compensating with a co-financing.
Okay. So it's a typical co-financing plan where you contribute, let's say, 30% with the EU.
Exactly.
Okay.
It is something actually that we need to take into account, because of course, not every kind of organization, especially in the non-for-profit domain, can really afford to advance a co-financing. This is why I want to specify it at this point. I think it's quite relevant. Maybe also a few words about research and innovation actions, because I think they are quite interesting. Is that well, normally they are kind of actions that are establishing, you know, new knowledge, but also improved technology, product, processes, services, but also solutions in terms of actions. Then, well, for instance, also about coordinating and support actions. They normally are kind of projects that are aiming at improving the cooperation among European Union member states and associated countries. So third countries, also to strengthen the European research area, because I mean, again, we are talking about the research and innovation program. So the overall idea is always to achieve, to contribute to enlarge, to strengthen the European research area, also with the results and so on. When it comes to the other, innovation actions and the co-fund, co-fund, for instance, they normally provide multi-annual co-funding for European partnerships. So it's, yeah.
Okay. And will you also come to geographical coverage of Horizon? Because I know there are institutions from outside of the EU that are present in this webinar, so it will be interesting for them if they
so when it comes to the geographical coverage, I can already answer you. It's worldwide.
Okay.
So
so can institutions from outside the Europe be the leaders of consortium as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So this is also one of the main news of the current Horizon Europe. So the one indeed that was opened with the new MFF. So starting from 2021, the eligible countries are worldwide.
Okay,
so it's not a program that is only eligible for European Union member states. Of course, there are some exceptions. And they are normally depending on the political context. So there are, of course, some updates on a yearly basis. Here, I'm focusing indeed on the Horizon Europe program as a whole. But the work program for next year, so for 2025, still needs to be published. So I may take the opportunity to remind, remind everybody that, we are in a political in a political sensitive momentum. We've just had the European elections. Of course, the European Commission is changing. The European Parliament is changing. So they are redefining also their priorities and the specific budget according to the sub-programs of every funding programs, including Horizon Europe then. So Russia currently is not eligible. Not only for Horizon Europe, but for any funding program financed by the European Union. Even Belarus has some, is not currently eligible for Horizon Europe, and also Israel is not at the moment. I also, my suggestion in any case is stay tuned.
Sure.
Because of course, I mean, they are going to publish the new work program for next year's, in the coming months. So of course, there will be some updates.
Good. Thank you. Thanks a lot for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Normal. Okay, so I will go. This is my, after this slide, we will gather also some other questions and answer, well, questions if there's any, but I wanted actually to focus at this point on the relevant cause that can be appropriate, especially for microfinance, I would say. So the first one that you can see here, so as Gregor said, this presentation will be also disseminated to all of you. There are hyperlinks, so you can go also checking on your own. But here, for instance, I'm highlighting a call whose deadline is this year. So it's the deadline is in particular on the 5th of September, 2024. Well, the other ones are actually calls that are currently expired, but I would anyway suggest, well, if you have time, if you of course are interested to go check in them, because they were published actually last year. Their deadline was last year, and their topic is quite relevant for microfinance. At the moment, actually, there are not, apart from this, there are not specific calls having as a keyword finance, but as I already said, it is a quite sensitive moment at this time, given the redefinition of priorities and so on. Something that I wanted to focus with this slide with you, given also that I explained about acronyms and so on, is how you can recognize also this kind of call. There are a lot of acronyms, but here, as you can see, there's Horizon. So it means actually that we are talking about a calls for proposals coming from the Horizon Europe program. Then we do have another acronym, which is standing for the cluster that we already saw in the previous slides. 2024, because it is a call published in 2024 indeed. And then there's a reference also to the pillar. So here you can see same thing. Cluster 6, for instance. Here we have biodive, so it's biodiversity, and so on. So now, is there any question or doubt at this moment?
I think the doubt came from Adi Danovic. He asked whether Bosnia is also eligible. I think in light of what you explained, absolutely yes. But would you like to confirm, Martina?
Can you repeat, please?
I noticed in the chat box the question from Adi Danovic whether Bosnia is eligible. I explained that in light of what you said. Yes, it is. But would you mind also confirming that, Martina?
Yes.
That is eligible. Yeah.
It is indeed.
Okay. And then we also have a question: research and innovation action is only for academia, so can also practitioners apply for the research and innovation action?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely.
Absolutely what?
Absolutely, yes, definitely. I mean, the idea is actually that, well, this is also something, I mean, when it comes to the composition of a consortium, so we are not meant to apply to such calls for proposals as a single organization. So the university or the research center cannot apply on its own. They need us. They need actually civil society organization, business operators. We need to apply as a consortium, sorry. Okay. So when it comes to research and innovation action, when it comes to any kind of European project, we need to apply, as a consortium. Then, of course, there are some specific calls that are they are called the mono-beneficiary calls. But here, when it comes to Horizon Europe on a transversal way, we can't apply as a single organization, and we need to create some consortia. Yeah. This is also something that I'm going to explain in the second part, well, kind of in the next slides.
So the question would also be whether an institution, for instance, a microfinance institution that has a research and innovation department, for instance, can apply without a scientific partner, right? If they can supply scientific approach and
yes, but not on their own.
Sure. Yeah, they would create partnerships, but the question would be whether academia would be indispensable in this process. You know, if
It's
they
not
have
it's not kind of indispensable, but
Okay.
it is recommended, I would say.
Okay, good.
Because because the idea is also to create collaboration between different kind of actors. So if a microfinance center can also show its attitude to collaborate with research and academia, I mean, at the end of the day, we are talking about indeed a research and innovation program, and we need to exploit the results coming from the academia into the labor market.
Yeah, good. So we have 2 more questions. Maybe we can respond to them using this opportunity. So, are these projects applicable only for microfinance or for SMEs as well? So that's one of them. And then the second is, what are the requirements for microfinance institutions to apply for the project? So I'm not sure whether you want to cover these things now or a little bit later.
Yes, so I have some slides about that. When it comes for the first question, so for the second question, I think we can indeed directly go to my following slides. When it comes to the first question, definitely yes. So
both SMEs and MFIs.
Any kind of organization is eligible. So it's non-for-profit organization, SMEs, public authorities, private institutions. For these, actually, there are no restrictions.
Okay. Super. Good. Excellent. Very good. Let's carry on.
Great. So here
there's one more actually, which has just come in. If the consortium must be international, it can be.
This is something I'm going to address.
Okay, so Julia, you will get the answer soon from Martina. Okay,
absolutely, good. Absolutely, and indeed here within this first slide, actually.
Very good.
So here I wanted indeed to start focusing on some essential notions. Because when dealing indeed with the European projects, when dealing with the elaboration of a project proposal, we need also to be able to recognize the specific lexic there is characterizing indeed this world. Because at the end of the day, we are talking indeed about a domain, a quite complex domain that also needs to be known by who is applying. So the construction, as I was previously mentioning, indeed, anytime actually we are applying for an Horizon Europe project, we need to build a consortium. There is also called partnership. So anytime you see consortium or partnership is the same concept. Normally consortium is the most used term. And so the consortium is actually an ensemble of organization that is applying to the call for proposals. So it is normally composed of different kind of organizations having different expertise. And here I come indeed, by replying to the question that was addressed in the chat, we do need also diversity in terms of geographical coverage. So the consortium is normally composed of different kind of roles. We have the coordinator, and then we have partners. The number of partners within a consortium can change. It depends actually on the call. It depends the requirements actually of the call. It can also depend on the topics that we want to face during the elaboration of a project proposal. Then we have, and of course, when it comes also to the diversity in terms of geographical coverage, this is also normally a requirement that can be specified in the call for proposals. If it's not specified, then normally in the Horizon Europe cause is not always specified, it means actually that they are expecting a very large geographical scope. Well, every time we need to keep in mind that we are dealing with a lot of money. We are dealing with very big budget, very big envelope. So we need to show, of course, that we are exploiting, that we are using this budget appropriately. We are using public money. It's funding that has been paid with our taxes. And of course, they also need to have a broad geographical scope, a broad geographical impact. Okay, then I close the bracket about the geographical coverage, and I continue indeed with the role of the different partners within a consortium. So as I was mentioning before, we do have the role of coordinator. The coordinator is a leading partner that has no actually a hierarchical role within the consortium. It only needs to communicate with the funding authority. So it's the organization that is entitled to liaise between the consortium of partners and the funding authority, which can be, well, in the case of Horizon Europe, normally is EISMEA, because it's the European, well, not only, it depends, well, it's very large actually. I'm not gonna go into details because otherwise I'm gonna open another very big bracket. So with the funding authority. Then we also have indeed the concept of beneficiary, which is quite interesting because there can be actually two different interpretations. So on the one hand, we do have the concept of beneficiary conceived as a partner of the project. So once again, we have the consortium, we have the coordinator who is ensuring actually the communication between partners and the funding authority. And then we have the other partners who are also called beneficiaries because they are benefiting from the money from the European Union. But at the same time, it also has another meaning, which is the final beneficiary of our project. So it is the person benefiting of the project outcomes and impacts at the very end. So sometimes we can even call them target groups because indeed we are dealing with them. Then we have the concept of the grant. So what's the grant? The grant is the subsidy that we are receiving by the funding authority. So normally, of course, according to the European Union principles, it is not possible to get any profit over an European Union grant. This is very important, and it's not only applicable for Horizon Europe. It is applicable, and this is why indeed I wrote according to the European Union principles. This is applying for any kind of European project. There can be some exemptions, but this is the normal rule. And then we have the grant agreement. So the grant agreement is the contract. There is regulating indeed all the terms for implementing the project between the funding authority and the consortium of partners. And then we also have the concept of associated partner, which is still different to the partner that I was mentioning before. So the associated partner is an organization that is contributing to the project without receiving any funding, without receiving any money. So they are contributing on a voluntary basis, basically. Then we have the concept of work package. This is also very interesting because it's not applying for just for Horizon Europe. This is also applying for all the European projects, actually. So the work package is a set of activities and outputs. There is organized according to the project objectives. So within the work package, you have a series of activities. What's inside the work package? We have tasks and deliverables. So tasks are activities. They are procedures that are leading to an output. So the output is called deliverable. Deliverable, of course, are generating impact, results. And then, of course, we can also talk about short-term results, medium-term results, long-term results, long-term impact, and so on. And indeed, impact is one of the most pressing concepts that, when elaborating actually a project proposal. What's the impact? So the impact is actually how the project is going to change something that was pointed out within the technical part of our project. So we need to take into account actually what's the difference that we are going to make when elaborating a project proposal. We always need to think of the fact that we need to convince evaluators, we need to convince the European Union that the project proposal we are elaborating is worth it. So we need actually to demonstrate, we need to argue about the kind of impact we will be able to get, not only at the end of the project life cycle, but also afterwards. So by keeping in mind also a long-term vision, so how also to exploit the results in the business and so on. How do we measure impact? Through KPIs, so the key performance indicators. So they can be very different. So we have quantitative KPIs, we can have qualitative KPIs, and of course we can also have long-term KPIs, and this is indeed for the long-term impact. This is for the long-term exploitation, and they will help us to measure indeed the progress of our project. So here also I try to put some examples. Number of participants to the events we are organizing, number of final beneficiaries. If we are organizing also some pilot activities, some tests on the ground, we also need to quantify them. Also the languages that we are using. And here, once again, this is why it is also important to have a large geographical coverage. It is also important to point out the outreach of the dissemination. So what's the impact on online by using social media, not only our social media, but also the ones of the partners that are composing our consortium? Are we creating also a new website? Are we developing also a specific microfinancial tool? And so we will also target a specific communication campaign about that. Well, we need to track this. We need to make sure actually that this is stated in the project proposal. How? With the KPIs. And indeed, the long-term sustainability. Again, the exploitation in the long term, the key impact in the long term, not only within the project life cycle, but also afterwards. So how can we measure that? It is, again, through the KPIs to achieve what? The long-term sustainability of the project. So we need to envisage actually a strategy that can ensure sustainability in the long run of project results. Is this clear to anybody. Because here, actually, I also, I know that, well, it's a lot of concepts. They are all quite rich. So I want also to make sure that we are all on the same page.
I guess participants might be familiar with those concepts as I guess judging by whom I see on the list of participants, just most of them deal with project
Perfect.
proposals. So
I can go on then.
There's one question from Ani Sargsyan from Farm Credit. Hello, Ani. Thank you for joining this webinar. Basically, Ani would like some confirmation that Armenia also is on the list of countries that can apply. And yes, we can confirm that absolutely Armenia is definitely eligible for Horizon funding.
Exactly. Yes. Well, if you don't mind, given that I still have some slides, and if there's no question at this point, I would go on.
Let's go on then.
Great. So here, indeed, we go the more and more in depth. Where do we need to apply? We need to apply, of course, online in the funding and tenders portal. So here also we put an hyperlink. So any kind of Horizon Europe project, well, not only Horizon Europe, needs to go through the funding and tenders portal. If we'll have some time, I can also illustrate this, but I want at this point to focus on how to proceed indeed with such a platform. There are different stages that we need to go through when applying for a project proposal. So first of all, we need to register onto the portal. Not every organization is used to that, so this is something, of course, that I need to specify. Every partner organization that is applying for a project needs to have its own profile with a PIC number. What is a PIC number?
Not just the consortium leader, but also each partner, right?
Every organization part of the consortium. This is super important. So every organization needs to have a PIC number. There is so-called participant identification code. So another acronym. I know there are a lot of acronyms. So once actually you register onto the portal, of course, this is free of charge, you automatically get a PIC number. And this is required because this is required especially for administrative terms. Anytime actually you are applying for a project, the European Union also need to assess your operational capacity, your financial capacity, and so on. So, when you are registering onto the portal and you are getting also such a PIC number, the European Union is assessing these kind of things. Are you really able to advance maybe some money if it is required also according to the terms of the call? Are you really able to, do you have actually the administrative capacity to carry out such a project? The cool thing is actually that this is one step that is required one single time, and then it's done. So anytime actually you're applying for other projects, you have your PIC number, everything is already onto the portal, or your administrative information are already onto the portal. So in case you need to update them, you can, but you don't need to re-enter such information anytime you are applying for a project proposal. So this is also quite relevant, I would say, to specify. Then there's the step of drafting a concept note. So the concept note is a document. There is summing up your ideas. Here, indeed, well, the idea once again is to be able to communicate with partners, potential partners of your consortium, so to have an overview of the idea to develop within the project proposal. So normally it is drafted by the coordinator, because normally the coordinator is the initiator also of the project proposal. In case of Horizon Europe project, often it's the research partner drafting the concept note. The research partner is not only the one coming from the academia. So before there was, for instance, a question from a participant indeed stating, okay, we do have a research department in our organization. Can we apply as a research partner? Of course you can. I would say there is anyway suggested, maybe not recommended, but it's quite well envisageable to have anyways a partner coming from the academia. But if your research department is also interested in developing a specific idea about an Horizon Europe project and so on, of course, do not hesitate also to write a concept note. What do we need to put in a concept note? The call for proposals with the topic. So we all know what we are talking about. The name of the project proposal, of course. So even if it's a temporary one, maybe it's gonna change. 95% of times it's gonna change, because the title of the project is normally something that you decide at the very end of the drafting process. But still, it's useful in order to also confer some trust to the concept you are developing, and also to the partners, the potential partners you are approaching. The grant request envisioned, and also the duration. Why? Because we need, of course, to understand, to acknowledge the kind of budget we are talking about. Also the terms of engagement, the length of our project. The deadline also for submission. So how long is gonna take this drafting process? How long we need to elaborate such a project proposal? The purpose and objectives, of course, of our potential project, the target groups that we are envisaging. We can have also different kind of target groups. There are direct target groups, and there are indirect target groups, and this is also something that we can already specify in our concept note. The kind of activities we want to develop, the budget. Once again, we think, because here we are still in a preliminary moment of our elaboration, that we think we need to deal with. And then also the composition of the consortium as we wish to have it. So the composition of the consortium, of course, is varying a lot, but still, if we do specify what we wish to have within our project proposal, is always an added value, because in this case, we can communicate with potential project partners also the kind of geographical coverage we wish to have. Okay, we know, well, we would like actually to have a partner in Armenia. We would like to have a business, let's say, for instance, a microfinance center. There is especially dealing with the vulnerable groups, or with the refugees in Ukraine. This is something we can specify in our concept note, because it shows actually that we do have clear ideas also when it comes not only to the composition of the consortium, but also in terms of activities, in terms of pilot activities maybe that we want to develop within our project. So here, for instance, I tried also to put an example. So
at the stage of the concept paper, we do not have to have firm commitments from our partners, right? It's more of a wish list of potential partnerships rather than
yeah.
Okay.
The idea, well, this is still a preliminary step,
Yeah.
you know. So the idea is that, well, here indeed we register onto the portal. Well, we have identified the call and so on. Then, well, we draft a concept note because we do have a project idea and we want to reach out to potential partners.
Yeah.
How do we do that? With a concept note. So here, well, this is one that we drafted indeed. Well, as you can see here, name of the project. So even if it's not kind of the definitive one, it's something actually that is coming up to my mind because we think actually that can show also the commitment, well, the topic and so on. Then we have the name of the, well, so first we have the European Union funding program. In this case, it was SERV, which is another funding program of the European Union. In this case, in another case, of course, it can also be Horizon Europe. Then we have grant request envisioned and duration. So here, this is something that is specified in the call. So we need also to put this information so we have an idea of the grant amount we may require. So about 350,000 euro. The duration, 24 months. So we know actually also the length of engagement when dealing with such a project in case we are gonna be awarded and then we need to implement it, of course. Deadline for application. So this is also relevant indeed when elaborating the call. And here, as you can see, well, it's a one page. Well, in this case, it's just one page. This is kind of my suggestion, just to have a one-page document, because, you know, at the end of the day, nobody's gonna read a 3-4 pages document. We need to be efficient. We need to be effective. So here you have purpose and objectives of the project. There is not only complying with my wishes, but also with the requirements of the call, of course. So here, the needs, the objectives, the target groups. So as I mentioned before, there can be also different kind of target groups. So there can be some direct target groups. There can be some indirect target groups. We can be more or less specific. I mean, at this point, it's a matter of, it's still a preliminary stage of the elaboration of the proposal. We also have a very concise, very short idea of the kind of activities we want to develop. There's also some information, some more specific information about the budget, which is different compared to the grant amount. And there's also the information indeed about the consortium, the partnership. So here, once again, is composed or is supposed, well, wishes to be composed of, and here indeed the different, and then of course the contact person.
Yeah.
Then of course there's also the part, well, we draft a concept note, we send it to potential partners, we reach out to them, they see indeed whether they are interested, whether they are not. We need, of course, to address the objectives of the call and establish activities within our project. And this is not something that the coordinator or the leading partner can do on its own. So even the author of the concept note, for instance, this is something that needs absolutely to be developed by the consortium of partners. Every partner within the consortium plays a role. This is extremely important because we cannot pretend actually to develop activities only focusing on the matters, on the missions of the leading organization, which, for instance, the academia. No way.
So excuse me, Martina. So once we, so the concept paper is more of an internal document, or is it something that should be approved first by the commission, and only then we develop the proposal?
No, it's an internal document. It's absolutely an internal document. Well, there can be there can be some calls for proposals even within Horizon Europe, having a 2 stages procedure for application. And in this case, the first stage would be a sort of concept note. But this is not the same I'm referring to with this slide. Because in that case, there's, of course, a template to follow. The concept note is only an internal document.
Okay. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Yeah, so the idea is actually that, indeed, I was talking about objectives and activities. So normally, there's always a difference between overarching objective and specific objectives. This is something that is also outlined in the call document. The overarching objective, as you, of course, may imagine, is supposed to be a general one. There is also fitting to the priorities. So you can remember at the beginning of my presentation, I was outlining indeed the objectives of Horizon Europe, the priorities, the synergies also with other funding programs, the fact that we need to achieve the twin transition and so on. So this can be indeed aligned with the concept of the general overarching objective. But once again, it is also something that you need to look at, especially in the call document. And then there are specific objectives. Specific objectives are more detailed because they apply in particular to our project proposal. We need to specify them, and of course, we need to link them to the priorities of the call. In the call document, you will definitely have the general objectives, the specific objectives, and then you need to go in depth by thinking, of course, of your ideas and to comply also with the ones that are defined in the call document. Of course, you need to take into account the needs of your countries, the features of your own geographical context. You need to take into account a lot of things. So not only indeed the ones that are outlined in the call document, but your ideas in particular, the political agenda, and so on. How do we do that? Also thanks to the help of partners. So we are building a consortium, we are building a partnership. Every organization, every partner within the consortium has its own role, and we all need to check, of course, the requirement of the call. We need to understand also what is the role that every kind of partner is supposed to carry out, to play when defining the partnership. We need also to have a complementarity between types of organization that are composing our consortium, because every organization has a different kind of expertise. The academia is specialized, of course, in research. The academia has its own perspective, has some experience in a specific field, maybe. But the business, the microfinance center, the civil society organization, the social enterprise that is dealing with the Ukrainian refugees has another point of view, has another kind of expertise. And this is something that needs absolutely to be specified, not only in the project proposal when it comes to the technical part, but also when it comes to the part of description of the consortium composition. We need, of course, to keep in mind that objectives, activities, and needs need to be aligned. Every partner is receiving its own budget. Every partner is developing also normally its own activities. Well, of course, we can't pretend that the academia will transfer the results of the research into the policy field. We need an organization that do have some expertise when it comes to the policy transfer. For instance, to draft some policy recommendation, because we are finding out during our project implementation that the pilot activities as they were envisaged in our project were not corresponding actually to the reality. So we need to address this through policy recommendation that we will transfer, for instance, to the European Union institutions. How do we do that? Thanks to an organization that is specialized in policy activities, in advocacy activities. We want to transfer the results of our research about, for instance, financing the research on the ground for integration of Ukrainian refugees to also businesses in Ukraine. We do need an organization that is specialized in that. We can't pretend actually this expertise from any kind of, from the academia, from research center. This is why I'm pointing out that it's not a program only for research and academia. The European Union absolutely wants the results of the research to be transferred to the business, to the real world, to the policy, to the policy level, to the policy makers, for instance. We need the cooperation of anybody. Of course, we need to stress the background of each partner, because this is of course providing trust and arguments to the evaluators, to the European Union that is of course reading our proposal. So I want to stress this aspect because I think it's quite crucial. So I try indeed to put some tips. So first of all, always a good pool of research and academic partner is envisaged. Why? Because again, we are speaking about our research and innovation. Oh my God. Okay, about our research and innovation program. So even though there are some research department and so on, it is not compulsory, but of course, it is a good tip. It is a good suggestion, I would say. I would say avoid inviting anyways partners. This is kind of as a general rule, avoid inviting partners before being familiar with the program rules. Why? Because sometimes there can be some eligibility or evaluation criteria that may vary. In general, given that in this specific case, we are speaking about Horizon Europe, there are not. Because as I was saying before, of course, any kind of organization, whether for profit, whether non-profit, whether public authority, and so on, is eligible. But as a general rule, I would say, yeah, double check the eligibility requirements before contacting partners, because then it's gonna be a bit tricky then to go back to them and so on. Also, build on partners you already know and your networks, because you already have some mutual trust. You can already rely on them. Every partner also needs to have a clear role. So this is something I already specified indeed. We also need to exploit the existing expertise of every partner. We also need to connect to strategic partner according to their own role. So sometimes there can be some academic institutions, some public authorities, sector representatives, organizations that are also able to pilot on the ground. So partners also that can be able to transfer policy results into policymakers and so on. Again, use the platform of funding and tenders portal also to look for potential partners. There's a part, there's a specific, here also I put the hyperlink. There's a specific part where you can look for potential partners, and it's also worth having different partners leading different work packages, because you have to justify also the role that every partner is having within your project. In general, I would say always keep in mind the objectives and the results you want to achieve. So I'm gonna, well, I will try actually to speed up because, yeah, there's a lot of content. Allora, so, once we have our project project consortium, we need also to draft a specific part of our project proposal, which is quite crucial because this counts a lot in terms of quality when it comes to the evaluation of our proposal. So it's the needs analysis and background. So first, you need to focus on national and regional challenges. You are the ones knowing what's happening at geographical level in your own area. You need actually to link also these challenges, these needs to the national, regional, and to the European priorities. At the end of the day, we are always dealing with European Union projects. So we need also to align with strategies that are defined by European Union institutions. We need actually some background to make sure that we are addressing also the expectations of the European Union, of the European Commission. Well, the European Union in general. Then, of course, we also need to take into account some synergies with other actions, other projects that we are already implementing, or, well, we are currently implementing, or also that we have implemented in the past, in recent times. This is not, once again, only applicable for the leading partner. This is applicable for every organization that is composing our consortium. We also need to use data and figures that are mentioning the source to argue the needs analysis. This is super important because anytime, well, we are arguing, we are bringing quantitative data, figures. So if we are also able to demonstrate the source, it will confer actually more credibility to our proposal. So this is something actually there is, I would say, more than fundamental. Here, I tried also to put some other tips about needs analysis and activities. So I will go quite fast through it because I can see that it's already 12:30. So Indeed, link needs and background of the call with the ones you establish for your proposal. So again, the idea is that you have your own idea, but you need also to liaise to comply with the needs that are defined in the call document. You also need to focus on the implementation countries. Well, when it comes to the needs analysis, we can't only take into account the regional dimension or the European dimension. We do have a geographical coverage. We do have some implementation countries. We do have some regions in particular. So we need also to know what are the challenges, what are the needs on the ground. We need to specify them in the project proposal so the evaluator would know that we are taking them into account when developing our project proposal. We also need this kind of expertise on the ground because we want to have an impact at local level. So papers, political agenda, it can vary. It can vary actually on different factors, also on political elections and so on. We also need to define target groups, of course, and target groups also have different needs. When we are piloting some actions with Ukrainian refugees, for instance, they don't have the same kind of needs of migrants, for instance, coming from Northern Africa. There can be actually some common needs, but they are definitely not the same. The needs of a new business operator that wants actually to find new tools, indeed new financing tools into the market, has not the same needs of an organization, of a research center, indeed, of academia. So we need to state what are these kind of needs. This is fundamental. Then we also need, of course, to establish the results and impact once again. So the delivery of the output, we need to take into account actually that needs we are establishing will make an impact. So, and they always need to be aligned. How do we achieve actually such an impact? By linking the needs also to the activities and to the objectives. This is super important because we can't think of having an impact without having activities that are linked to the needs we are establishing. So it is also very important actually not to create too many work packages. It depends also on the budget, I would say. We need to take into account the fact that we are managing a very big budget. We need, of course, to demonstrate that the activities developed are worth. But then we also need to deal with a lot of work packages. So, of course, with a large consortium, it's going to be easier. But we also need to ensure actually the development of such a work. So in general terms, it's not very worth having 20 work packages. Not at all. Then, of course, be always proportionate by taking in consideration the budget you are asking for, as I already said, and take into account both qualitative and quantitative KPIs to be able, once again, to measure the progress and the achievement of results. Because this is giving credibility to your proposal. This is for sure. So this is a slide, indeed, there is also showing what I was mentioning before. So the relation between needs that you are establishing, the tasks, so the activities. So the activities, you may remember one of the slides before, there was actually this repartition between tasks and deliverable. So we have the needs that are linked to tasks and deliverable. How do we, that are leading to the achievement of the objectives that are also defined in our call. So of course, one need may be linked to more than one objective, and the one objective may respond to more than one need. This is, quite free. You have any kind of freedom in this sense, but you need to demonstrate the link between the different areas, because when you are dealing actually also with the elaboration, with the drafting of the work package, they are clearly asking what is the objective that you are aimed to achieve within this work package. How do you link it with the ones that are defined in the previous section of the project proposal, where you are outlining the overarching objective and the specific objectives? So this is why you always need to have such an overview of your project. Any question or doubt at this point? Okay, if not, I would go on, because I still have a few slides. And it's indeed about the drafting of a project proposal. So this is indeed something, well, I have already mentioned indeed the different steps of elaboration of a project proposal. Here, indeed, I want to focus on more concrete terms. So what are we talking about when we are dealing with an application, with a project proposal? We are talking about different parts. So we have, first of all, part A, which is the administrative part. Normally, this is always onto the portal, directly onto the portal. So it is the funding and tenders portal I was talking about. So there was also the hyperlink in one of the previous slides. This part is composed of some elements. So you have first the general information about your project. This is composed of the abstract, the duration in months, but also some keywords. So normally the abstract is something that you will draft at the very end of your project proposal elaboration. The partner organizations. So this is the consortium. The consortium, again, is composed of coordinator, partners, otherwise also called beneficiaries. Here, it's the part of your project proposal where you are meant to define what are the partners that are composing your consortium. And this is why it's absolutely important, of course, to have a peak number. So the participant, the one indeed that you are getting when registering onto the portal. There you are also meant to define the contact persons, the researchers that are involved in the project, because once again we are talking about Horizon Europe, which is a research and innovation program. So they want actually also focus on research aspects. If your organization is not having any researcher involved within your staff, it's not an issue. Because actually we are not always meant to have researchers within our staff. But of course, other organizations that are composing the consortium need to have researchers. So well, that's it. Then, of course, relevant publications, again, the link with the academia. Sometimes, well, not sometimes, normally, actually, you are not meant to you are not meant to outline only publications, academia publications. You can mention also publications, for instance, in your own website, in relevant policy papers and so on, that are showing actually the kind of expertise there is required by your own organization according to the role that your organization is having within that consortium and within that project. So, and then we have the budget, of course, which is also requiring a breakdown per partner and also a breakdown per budget category. Then there's the part B, which I would say is the core part. It is the technical part. There's always a template. There is available, directly available onto the portal. We need to download it, and then, of course, so we can fill it out. So the technical part is composed of different sections, as you can see here. So I tried also to put the summary of these different sections. We have the excellence part, and this is addressing objectives and ambition and also methodology. So I'm not gonna repeat this. It's the same concepts I was explaining in the previous slides. So also the importance of addressing the needs with the activities and objectives and so on, the policy background, not only the policy one, but also the research one, the topic background and so on. The impact also, again, so specific needs, expected results, how also the dissemination is taking place, how the exploitation is taking place, how do you envisage the communication within your own project, the target groups, so again, indirect target groups, their needs and so on, the outcomes and also the impact. So I already explained this in depth in a previous slide, so I'm not gonna repeat myself here, but I wanted actually to make sure that you know actually where we need to outline these kind of topics when dealing with a project proposal. Then quality and efficiency of the implementation, and here indeed we have the work plan. What is the work plan? The work plan is how your activities are taking place, meaning work packages, tasks, deliverables that were indeed in the previous slides, the milestones, critical risks, but also the figures in terms of staff efforts. Again, we are dealing with a specific budget. We are dealing with a specific envelope. We need to make sure that that money is used according to the kind of stuff we are having in our pool, in our time, in our team. And of course, this is not only about the leading participant, it is also intended as consortium as a whole. So we need, of course, to include the different countries. We need to take into account also the effort, not only at national level, but for instance, if we are also involving actors, if we are involving organizations that are working on the ground, for instance, for some pilot activities, and we are also envisaging, for instance, some subcontracting, we do need to take that effort into account, and we do need also to specify this here in this specific part. We are also having the part on budget. So the budget, we could have a whole webinar on budget. So I'm trying to be quite concise when it comes to this part of the project proposal. The budget is articulated in different budget categories. We have staff costs, And of course, it is complying with a format there is called person month. This is kind of the current favorite format used by the European Union at this moment. So this is related to the concept of human effort. As you can see, I put in the right side of the slide, indeed, the human effort is intended as person month. Well, the person months are actually intended as human effort, and it is the metric for the time, so the effort that the key personnel of an organization is dedicating to a specific project. There is also a specific formula to calculate this. I'm not diving into this because otherwise we open also another very long bracket, but still I wanted to specify that this is a key concept when dealing with the staff cost category, because the staff cost category at the end of the day is going to be the most consistent, the biggest actually budget category within our whole budget for the project. Then we also have another budget category that is called subcontracting costs. So subcontracting, I think you may already be quite familiar with such a concept. Normally is not supposed to be higher than 30% of the whole budget amount. And it absolutely needs to be duly justified, because normally actually the composition, the consortium as a whole is already supposed to have the key expertise to carry out the action, to carry out the activities. So if you're choosing actually to subcontract the activities, you need to justify it. You need to explain why you, as a consortium, you don't have such an expertise and why you are subcontracting it. Normally, you can't subcontract core activities of your project. This is also something that I want to specify. Then you have the travel and subsistence costs. So this is also including accommodation costs. You also have equipment costs. So in this case, you also need to calculate amortization. This is why I always discourage going into equipment costs, because they are quite annoying, I would say, to calculate. And then we have, of course, indirect costs. So as I was mentioning before, they are up to 25% when it comes to Horizon Europe project. So they're quite interesting. Of course, here I wrote normally, because this is kind of the general rule. There can be some exceptions. And the super also interesting information about the indirect costs is actually that we don't need to justify anything about that. So when we are reporting, financially speaking, our project, we are getting actually the indirect cost amount automatically. We don't need to do anything. So here actually I finished with my presentation. I'm leaving here my contact as last slide. Don't hesitate to email me if you want to get also some additional information. I mean, Gregory is anyways disseminating this information, but thank you very much for your attention. And I'm still here to get some, to answer to some questions if you, if you have any.
Okay, super. Thank you so much, Martina. A couple of people let us know that they're going, so they're also asking for slides. So as we said, they will be shared with everyone. There's no problem about that. There's also a question from from Lourdes Gonzalez Calma about is valid publications in LinkedIn or other such as Instagram. So I guess she's asking, about the availability of publications. I think we would advise, both of us, Martina and myself, would advise to go to directly to the EU website. I think there is an EU funding portal which you can use. Horizon also is a kind of a sub. So if you go to European Commission website, there is
actually in the funding and tenders portal that I was explaining before.
Exactly.
You can filter the research according to the funding program. So you go into the filters, you put indeed Horizon Europe, and then you will be able to see all the calls. So you can even filter for forthcoming calls, closed calls, or the current open ones. So this is you will find everything
the
into
best
the
way.
funding and tenders portal.
Yeah. So it seems it's a great opportunity, especially I think if you have in your mind some sort of innovation that is hard to get financing through private sources, where really public funding can help in testing your idea and also provide some scientific justification for it. I think that's ideal. You really should try then this source of funding. It's as Martina explained, there are a few requirements that are critical. One of them is to build a solid consortium. I think that's really one of the most important ones, because if you start on your own, I think you do not stand a chance of getting the funding. If it's only through consortia, well divided tasks and roles for each consortium, where you can really succeed in getting financing. So I don't know, just are there any questions that you would like to ask at this stage? We still have a few minutes, not so many, but if you have, then it is now a good time to ask them. So is there anything you can make yourself visible, or just no problem about that, or you can write your question in the chat box. Please go ahead if you have any questions. It doesn't seem like there are any. So
It means that everything was clear. I'm
exactly, everything was really very precise and clear. And
I suppose, at least.
Yeah, you can always write to us or write directly to Martina. I'm sure she agrees to answer your queries if they are not maybe too detailed. So there's always this channel. If not, I think I hope that it has been a valuable and useful introduction to all of you to this to this rather exciting world of Horizon funding, innovative ideas, and it seems that well-crafted proposals. I think also the key would be to write a good, clever proposal. You stand high chances of getting the Horizon funding. So let me thank Martina for offering this wealth of information to all of our participants. We really appreciate your time and effort. I also want to thank everyone for participation in this. Also, my colleague Joanna, who has prepared all of this webinar. I will ask you to evaluate, since we're sparing a few minutes, to evaluate this webinar. Once you get out of this website of Zoom, an evaluation form will pop up. It's a very short one, so if you could kindly take a few minutes to put your remarks and evaluate this, we would highly appreciate. If there are no other questions, then once again, thank you everyone for your time, and see you at have good holidays. I hope everyone is thinking now of holidays, and we will see each other probably after the holiday season, and that is in September. We'll continue with SIFTA webinars and events. Thank you so much then, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.